I'm 100% sure I'm not alone, but when you shot this weapon for the first time, your first reaction was probably something like this. Damn! I mean, seriously, what the f is this thing? So the GP-31 Ultimatum has revolutionized what is possible as a personal weapon, especially in the secondary slot. Previously, we thought that the crossbow and the grenade pistol were peak utility, but oh boy, were we oh so wrong about that one. In this deep dive video, we're going to completely break down the Ultimatum, go over its strengths and weaknesses, and ultimately decide what the ranking for this weapon is in the vast majority of weapons that we have in Helldivers 2. But first things first, you know what time it is. Let's do it. Just to give you some perspective of how ridiculous this thing is, I'm going to compare this directly to some of the most popular stratagems in the game so that way you can understand how crazy this demo force and damage is on this weapon. The Ultimatum either has the same, if not more, demo and or damage force in the following weapons and stratagems. So the spear, the recoilless rifle, the Eagle 500 kg, and the anti-tank emplacement, and there's so many other ones that I didn't list, but those are the big ones that people use the most, and that's absolutely crazy from something that we have in the secondary slot. So to be more direct with what this weapon actually compares to is it compares directly to the orbital precision strike. It has the same projectile force damage, it has the same explosive damage, it has the same demo force, and it also has the same penetration values. So essentially, this is a precision strike in the secondary slot. Keep that in mind, that is huge. So to give you a brief overview of what this weapon actually is and its overall utility, essentially this weapon, again, is a precision strike in the secondary slot. Basically, you can reload this at any time, doesn't have a cooldown. You can get these things from ammo bricks, you can bring in supply packs or whatever you want to keep this thing going, but essentially you get upwards of 2 precision strikes in your pocket at any time. Absolutely ridiculous. This thing can destroy the majority of objectives in the games, like signal jammers, which we all hate. It can also destroy Shrieker Nest in one shot, which is really good to get rid of those really fast, so you don't have to wait for a freaking hell bomb or pick at them with other weapons. And it's also going to destroy a lot of the elite level units very quickly. It can one-shot Titans, it can destroy Hulks in one shot. The only thing it kind of struggles against is Factory Striders, but we'll get to that in just a little bit. But literally, this thing is absolutely insane for being a secondary weapon. So some key points of some notable changes to this weapon that we just recently got. So Siege Ready no longer affects this weapon, so essentially Siege Ready was giving this a bonus round and they took that away, which is a fair balance because this thing is so strong. There are some weird bugs with this weapon that I can't quite explain, but periodically you'll have this moment where you'll shoot and there'll be like a ghost round and either nothing will happen or nothing will happen but you'll kill the target that you're shooting at. It's very weird, I'm not sure why that happens, but it's a weird ghost round thing. The one other glitch, but not really a glitch, it's more of a funky thing with the weapon, is that if you shoot instantly as soon as you switch weapons, a lot of times it will go sailing over your target and for a wider range of distance. So you got to keep that in mind. Sometimes that can be by design if you want to get some more distance on the shot, but if you're trying to kill something that is in your way and you want to kill it, you gotta keep that in mind, that you don't want to shoot this thing immediately once you switch weapons because you're going to overshoot your target. Another thing to keep in mind is that this weapon's projectile is extremely heavy, so it's going to have a really fast drop, unlike any other thing that we have in the game. So if you just shoot it right in front of you, you're probably going to die because the range is not very far, and I have a series of range tests that we're going to go over in a moment. But essentially you want to give this thing some sort of arc, that way it can go a little bit in front of you so you don't get any damage or you kill your teammates, like I've done quite a few times. It's quite annoying, but it's funny. The one thing to keep in mind with this weapon is that you're going to see in the tooltip that it says 4,500 damage. That's a little misleading. Essentially, you have 3,500 projectile damage and you have 1,000 explosion damage. These two can be married together to create the 4,500 damage, but if you don't hit the target with a direct shot, you're losing upwards of 3,500 damage, meaning you're only doing the 1,000 explosive damage, which is not enough to kill things like chargers, tanks, Hulks, and things of that nature. You have to direct impact these things to be able to kill them. This is good enough to destroy medium units, it's good enough to destroy bug holes and various things like that, but if you're trying to destroy an objective or you're trying to destroy an elite units, you're gonna have to hit it directly. So that's just the biggest thing that you have to understand. But I will say one good thing is that the explosion is good enough to take off plating from like chargers or something like that. So if you want to expose a leg or something like that so you can shoot it, that will actually be a benefit as well. So jumping into a range test, you'll probably find some things that are pretty useful overall. So essentially, if you're aiming this thing straight on, you can only shoot it up to about 17 meters and then it's gonna blow up, and that's enough explosion radius to kill you, so be careful. If you aim this at a 45-degree angle, you're gonna get upwards of 30 meters on this thing. If you dive with this thing, meaning you're diving your character forward and you shoot this at the same time, you're gonna roughly shoot this about 40 meters. But if you use a new emote called Raised Weapons, this is actually gonna increase the range even further, sending this shell up to 45 to 50 meters roughly, which is insane. And lastly, if you use the jump pack and get some air and aim it up to 45 degrees, you're gonna be able to shoot this thing an ungodly amount of distance. I didn't really get to calculate this exactly, but it is absolutely ridiculous. So we're about to jump into the factions and break down all the objectives that can be destroyed with this thing, but essentially the general objectives that can be destroyed with this thing are the illegal broadcast and also the rogue research centers that can be one-shot very easily by this weapon. So starting out with the Terminid forces against the unarmored, light armored units and the medium units, basically everything that isn't a charge or a Biotitan, you're gonna one-shot it. It's not a big deal whether you hit them with the explosion or directly with this thing. If they're in the radius, they will die, so nothing really to talk about there. But against the heavier units is where this thing is actually the most interesting. So against the Chargers and the Biotitans, the Charger variants all require a direct hit from this weapon. You can take off the plating like I mentioned before with an explosion, but again, it's going to take multiple of these with the explosion only to be able to kill them, so you got to be accurate with your shots. But again, you can kill yourself if you're too close. But against Biotitans, you can one-shot them if you hit them directly in the head. However, if you do hit them in the body, sometimes you will kill them, sometimes you won't. A lot of times I've noticed that the plating on their back comes off and you can finish them off with a weapon if you'd like, because they're very, very damaged from this thing. But essentially with the Biotitans, you want to hit them in the head where possible. So on screen right now, you're going to see a list of the various objectives on the bug sides, and we don't have many of them, but with the Shrieker Towers, it's going to take one direct impact shot to be able to destroy a tower. So there's 3 of them, so it's going to take 3 total shots. With the Spore Towers, there's only 1 of these, and it's going to take 1 direct shot to be able to kill those. So with the bug holes in the Stalker layers, you can destroy them by shooting directly into them. However, I have had great success at shooting just in the general vicinity, and the explosion is enough to be able to close up these bug holes, which is great. With the Purge Hatcheries, the explosion is enough to be able to destroy the various eggs, so no need to actually direct impact. But if you direct impact it, you will be able to have a wider radius of most of the eggs in the area. So how does this weapon perform on level 10 dives against the Terminids? Honestly, it's incredible. It's a delete button for any enemy in the game, against any objective in the game, and if you manage the weapon well, meaning you bring in ways to offset the low ammo count, you're gonna be able to destroy a lot of things, and this can be your primary source of anti-tank if you really, really want it to be. It's obviously complete overkill for the various small units and the medium units, but if you just get overwhelmed and you're like, just go away, just shoot it in the pack of enemies and they'll just die from everything, including the explosion. I love this thing because it will make quick work of the various towers, because there's nothing more annoying than having to play this freaking cat and mouse game with the Shrieker Towers. You want to just make them go away, so this thing is just really nice to be able to delete those very quickly. Now, I will say that one thing that I did end up doing is I wanted to bring this and use it primarily for objective destroying and mostly anti-tank. So I did end up bringing something like the crossbow, frag grenades, or the grenade launcher to be able to deal with the various bug holes, because I thought it was a bit much to try and just save all of my ammo for the bug holes. So again, those are the options that I decided to bring in for that. So the build I ended up going with for the bugs was the following. So the primary weapon was the Adjudicator. It's a great medium armor penetration assault rifle. The secondary I ended up going with was obviously Ultimatum. The equipment slot I went with was the gas grenade. Armor passive was the acclimated armor passive. I ran either the medium or the light armor, just your choice. The stratagems I ended up going with were the supply pack, because that was great for being able to replenish my ultimatum shots. The grenade launcher was also great for being able to deal with ad clear and also being able to deal with the various bug holes. The grenade launcher is very underrated and very, very good against the bugs. I also brought in the napalm barrage because it's our nuclear option to be able to just eviscerate everything on the map, which is great. And then lastly, I brought in the 500 kg if things got a little bit too sticky and the ultimatum wasn't good enough to be able to destroy that particular elite unit. This really helped out a lot. All right, so how does this weapon perform against those damn Illuminates? So against the unarmored and light armored units and the medium armored units, let's go ahead and lump them all in there. It's the same thing as all the other factions. It's just going to absolutely eviscerate all these enemies if they're remotely close to the blast radius. So there's really nothing to talk about there. But against harvesters, I'm going to keep it simple. It one-shots harvesters. It's very easy, but you have to take down the shields. If you don't take down the shields, it won't kill them. So the blast radius will destroy the shield or the little bubble, and that's it. Really, you have to have something to take it down. Shoot them directly. They will die, no problem at all, or it'll take a couple of explosions from a shot that you hit to too close. But yeah, they're a little bit tricky, but overall, they can die really quickly with one shot. We'll get a couple of different objectives for the Illuminate specifically. So with the warp ships that are landed, that basically are their little spawners, the warp ships can be one shot directly with this weapon, which is great because we don't have too many options in the weapon category that can do that, which is awesome. The cognitive disruptors cannot be destroyed by this weapon, nor can the monoliths be destroyed by this weapon. How does this weapon perform in a level 10 dive versus the Illuminates? Honestly, it feels like overkill. Completely unnecessary. It will do good if you're just trying to make harvesters just go away, but there's so many like various other weapons that are great at destroying the harvesters that this just does not feel needed overall. However, I will say that if you're trying to complete the blitz missions insanely fast, throw a supply pack on, run with this thing, you'll be able to just mow through all the various little blitz camps. Yeah, it's really, really good for that. But outside of that, I really do prefer to run a lot of other things in the secondary slot. So the build for the Illuminate that I was using is the following. So I was using the primary weapon was the Torture. Secondary was obviously the Ultimatum. The equipment item was the Incendiary Impact Grenade. I was using the Peak Physique Armor Passive. My stratagems were the Machine Gun to be able to take out all the various units and help with dealing with anything else, because the machine gun is just great against the Illuminates. Supply pack was obviously here to help refund ultimatum shots. The Rocket Sentry was great at being able to deal with all the units as well. Machine Gun Sentry has a low cooldown, and I absolutely love it paired with the Rocket Sentry. So this build was a lot of fun, and I felt like it worked well, but again, the Ultimatum just felt complete overkill in my opinion. So how does this weapon perform against those Daggum, Automaton, Ragdolling, Sons of Guns? Against the unarmored, light armored, medium units, including the Devastators, the Striders, and the gunships, if you can hit them with this thing, and all the berserkers and stuff, it'll one-shot all of them very easily with not only the direct impacts but the explosions, just like all the other factions. Focusing in on the heavier units, meaning the Hulks, the tanks, the defense towers, and the factory striders. So against the Hulks, if you hit them directly, one shot. Tanks, hit them directly, one shot. Defense towers, one shot. With the Hulks, tanks, defense towers, explosion, you will not one shot them. You have to kill them with multiple of them. Factory striders will take more than one direct impact to be able to destroy. I've seen it take upwards of 3. Now, if you shoot them in the belly, which is very risky, meaning you're going complete kamikaze, you will destroy them very quickly because that is medium armor plating underneath them, so they will die very fast from a direct impact. However, if you're shooting a factory strider in any other part of its body, face, side, whatever, it's going to take multiple direct impacts to that particular area for it to die, upwards of like 3, maybe even 4. So it's not very efficient against that. You'll still need some other options to be able to deal with the factory striders, but against everything else, a direct impact will kill them in one shot. We have a lot of objectives on the automaton side to go over, but basically this is the breakdown of it that you're going to see on screen. So the command bunkers, it takes 1 to 2 shots. So the command bunkers are weird because they have multiple different layers, but if you get it right in the middle, meaning you get an arcing shot that goes right in the middle, it will destroy it in one shot sometimes, but it's probably going to take about 2 shots if you're being realistic. So pretty much everything outside of that can all be one shot by this weapon in some form or another. Stratagem jammers, anti-air emplacements, detector towers, mortar encampments, fabricators, enemy bioprocessors, air bases, whatever, they can all be one shot by this weapon easily. The only things that can't be destroyed by this weapon are gunship facilities and also the orbital defense cannons, so you have to actually still use hell bombs to destroy those, but pretty much everything on the bot side can be one shot by this weapon. So how does this weapon perform on level 10 dives against those automaton bastards? Essentially, this thing is really good. I absolutely love this freaking weapon against the automatons. It's probably my favorite thing because there are so many various objectives. There's so many different Hulk variants, so many different tank variants that I just love using this thing because it makes so many situations so much easier. So I would definitely say that this is one of the top tier secondary items, if not my favorite, because I never felt like the grenade pistol was really worth it. It always felt like it was too ricochet and didn't actually hit the things I wanted to hit or destroy them very easily. But this thing will just absolutely nuke anything. It will destroy fabricators easily, will destroy all the objectives like I mentioned before. It will deal with all the various elite units. The only thing it doesn't do well against is the factory striders, which is something that you're just going to have to bring in some other arsenal to be able to deal with as well, which is not a huge deal. So the build I ended up going with against the bots was the following. So the primary weapon was the new double-edged sickle. Also, I used the ultimatum, the stun grenade. In the equipment slots, the armor passive I used was inflammable to be able to help with the double-edged sickle. Stratagems I used were the supply pack to be able to help keep our ultimatum shots going. The quasar cannon was to help with anti-tank and especially against the factory striders. 380 barrage was also here to be able to clear out bases and make quick work of various large encampments. The rocket sentry was a cherry on top to help us deal more damage to the various elite units, also any other large camps, or be able to help us with factory striders. It's just a great overall sentry to bring in against the bots. All right, so here are my final thoughts on my overall ranking for the Ultimatum. So essentially this thing is a monster. No, it's not perfect. The ammo is limited, and I understand that they ended up nerfing the ammo a little bit by taking away the siege armor passive buff, but at the same time, there's so many ways to offset that by being able to get resupplies, being able to bring a supply pack, being able to have your teammates bring in resupplies and resupply you, find loose bricks on the map, especially against the Illuminate. In the urban environment, you find so much ammo on the ground, and again, you're gonna have to find those POIs with the ammo bricks. So there are ways to get a lot of ammo for this thing throughout any of the encounters. So really, it's not a huge downside, but again, it is a limiting factor because you only get 2 shots. So if you screw up, then you're going to be out of a precision strike shot, which is annoying. So overall, this thing just crushes elites. It's great against objectives, and honestly, it's probably one of the best utility tools we've gotten since the secondary grenade pistol. So overall, I'm gonna have to give this weapon an overall S tier, even though it has some shortcomings. Essentially, once you get good with this and you actually learn the play style of it, it is an immediate utility tool machine in the secondary slot, and it's damn good in my opinion. All right, so that's my complete breakdown of the GP-31 Ultimatum. Let me know what you guys think about this video down in the comments below, and give me your perfect builds for this weapon also in the comments below. Anyways, guys, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.